This is a video about drama and trolling, and I've been online a very long time now, taking part in these kinds of conversations that we have, and so I have a lot of experience with drama and trolling. Now, trolling, it really is important to remember. There's a monster side. I'm going to talk about that. But the original meaning of trolling is that it's like you're fishing. You throw a line off the back and you go around waiting. You leave the line in the water waiting just as you go along, waiting for something to bite. So that's the idea of trolling. They would go in to say, let's say, a woman's right form and say, women should be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. And just wait and see the answers that they know are going to come. Now, if they're a more subtle kind of troll, then they're going to write something, more subtle. They're going to write something like, "Well, I believe in women's rights, and I'm a woman," and they're really a 14-year-old boy, and I'm a woman, or maybe a 40-year-old man, uh, and I think women should have rights, but my husband says they shouldn't, and I just don't want to speak back to him, so I do what he says. Now, people might believe that's real. See, that's a more subtle troll because instead of just getting a lot of angry replies and people that are indignant and may not talk to you again, that second, more subtle one might actually draw someone into an extended conversation in which predictable opinions are brought out. Okay. So the trolls are online trying to get responses. Well, so are we, those of us that have topics that we want to talk about. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that the troll has no interest in the topic. They're not interested in what the people think in response. No, they're relying on the people to think a particular thing and to be able to emotionally manipulate the people. So, that's not a good thing. That's annoying because it's manipulative and it wastes time. Um, but the thing is that it's of some use to avoid bait like that, to learn how to do that. And when you see a troll, this is why we have the saying, "Don't feed the troll." They just want a response. So if you respond, then they've won. Okay. On the other hand, it's I do respond to trolls because they don't just want any old response. They're trying to manipulate you. And plus, there's some tactics that are successful and reliable against trolls. So, I mean, some things you wouldn't expect, like with most trolls, a counter insult is usually effective. They're they're vulnerable to whatever insult that they've given you. They say, "You're gay." And you wouldn't think of just going, "Well, you too, you're gay." And you could be more subtle about it than that. But they're going to be probably vulnerable to that kind of thing. And you wouldn't think that's a fun kind of game. It's like your mama, and you just go your mama back. But then again, your mama jokes are a tradition. It's a game, and the trolls are just playing a game. And you either play or you don't play. And I suggest not playing. But as I say, you can play if you want a little bit. And there is some reason to push back, and this is the point where trolling becomes more than an annoyance, more than an educational opportunity of how not to be so easily manipulated. Uh, Harassment. Words are actions, and sometimes if we try really hard, those actions are actions of communication. But words are always actions, and if somebody that's harassing someone to the point where they're having emotional issues with what they're hearing offline, or um, they feel like they have to get off that website or the internet, stop doing what they've enjoyed doing, then they're a victim of harassment. And so it's really harassment trolls that are the problem. Um, the, there are two kinds of situation, that I'm thinking of that lead people to harassment trolling. And one kind is just that they're a troll and they're juvenile. Whether they're young or not is irrelevant. It could be at any age of life, but they're juvenile. and it's sort of a 12-year-old attitude or 13-year-old attitude or whatever, something young, where if you speak, and gross insults and I'll do this to your mom and did this to me kind of stuff. It feels liberating to certain kinds of youth that had very certain kinds of childhoods where they feel that it is so unexpected of them, so unexpected of what their role as children is supposed to be, and they're really out of date on this, but still that it's liberating. They break out of this shell of containment, of institutionalized conformity. Um, it's ironic because they haven't really broken out of the shell, right? Because they're all conforming in the same way of non-conforming. It's like packaged rebellion, and so you see it repeated over and over. But whatever, they can learn, they can grow up, um, they can mature. But there's another type, and that's someone that wasn't a troll or didn't really see themselves as a troll. They might have troll tendencies. In other words, they can see the attraction of playing with other people's emotions. But they had a point. They wanted to make a point. But see, when you online, you talk to one person. Generally, after a while, you've said every major thing. You run out of the things that took you years to build up. And if you could say anything new, they're much smaller things. And so it seems to be like people are just butting heads. They realize they're not going to change each other. Now, when you get in a situation like that, you can take these either path. You can stop talking to them, highly recommended, or you can keep talking to them. And if you keep talking to them, um, there's sort of two things that happen. And one is this harassment. People give up on changing that other person, so they just start harassing them. Instead of talking about the points, they talk about the perceived weaknesses of that person, or even things that aren't weaknesses of that person, but that person is self-conscious about. Whatever they can get just to have an emotional impact on this person, and that's a harassment. Um, if it's meant to be a damaging impact. And that's why all trolls are somewhat susceptible to this complaint of being harassers, right? Because it's disingenuous what they're doing. But I pretty much think that there's an innocuous level of trolling, a harmless type. Um, but that's how a lot of people that have points, and this is sometimes why they can think that they still have a point, um, get into this harassment mode. Because if you keep talking to somebody online after you've got to this point where it's like it's all shaken out, you can see where you overlap, where you don't, where the other person doesn't look like they're going to change. Certainly not fast enough to ever hold an opinion that you would respect on that subject. If you're going to keep talking to those people, you have to become collaborators with them. You're going to have to build new ideas that somehow fit together, that end up being interfaces and bridges between your two philosophies. And on that path, you go to being able to respect the other person's opinions for what they are, and maybe even realize that it takes more than one type of person to sort of fill up the philosophical landscape that a whole society ought to cover. Um, and again, that's why some people say they don't want to go down that route. They don't want to work productively with that person. It's working with the enemy or something. And so they want to, uh, uh, just try to harass that person and somehow be a problem for that person. When they really, at that point, should just stop talking to them. Don't feed that other person. There's relativity, but maybe that person's a troll for you because, see, they push your buttons. Maybe even without wanting to, they do want to argue a certain way, and it's effective in pushing your buttons, and it drives you mad. Don't feed, don't feed that. Um, the trolls, um, you know, are just playing a game, and it's not a particularly fun game unless you're in a particular mood. Um, I have valued it because it has taught me how to not be so emotionally manipulatable. And this has helped me in drama so that I have more conscious